Hey YouTube, how's it going? It's Quentin here, and welcome to tutorial number 12. And in this video, we are going to talk about if statements in PHP. So up until now, whenever we typed code into Notepad++, absolutely all of that code was executed line by line by line. But if statements actually give us the ability to make decisions. So in other words, we can decide whether we want a certain line of code or a certain section of code to get executed based on whether that a variable or something meets a certain condition in our code. Okay, so the syntax for an if statement looks like this, and by syntax I'm just talking about how the layout of the code looks. Okay, so we type in if, and then we've got two parentheses, opening parentheses and a closing one. Okay, and then we also put in a condition. Okay, oh man, I spelled that thing wrong twice in a row. Okay, so condition. Okay, some people like to call this condition an expression, but it doesn't really matter whatever you call it. It's just whatever's in here, this is going to be a test. Okay, the computer has to run this test and see if this test is true or false. Okay, so in other words, we're just giving it a condition to check. Okay, and after that, what we'll do is we'll indent one line, so just one tab space, and then we'll put in another statement. Okay, so this will be basically the code, the line of code that runs if this condition gets evaluated to true. Now, I like to actually use the curly braces whenever I'm using an if statement. If we're only going to run one line of code, then we don't actually need these curly braces. But if we want to run more than one line of code, so in other words, if we want to run a few statements, then we need these curly braces. Okay. Now some people like to make their curly braces like this, so they give this curly brace its own line. I like to save time or save space, sorry, and actually just keep it all on one line. Okay, but you'll actually see, if you check around on Reddit and some other social networks and stuff, a lot of people joke around and they say there are two types of programmers: the guys that do this and the guys that do this. There's no difference except for the fact that we get to save space if we do it this way. So that's how I like to keep my if statements looking like. I mean, what I like to keep my if statements like. That makes more sense. Okay, so like I said, we're going to put a condition in here, basically a test that the computer needs to run. Okay, so let's make a variable outside this if statement now called apples, and let's assign the value of 3 to apples. Okay, now for our condition, what we can do is check if there's more than one apple. So we can go ahead and say apples greater than 1. So the computer reads this and goes, if apples is greater than 1, then I'm going to run this code. Okay, so for this example, apples is 3. So the computer is reading this like this. It's going, if 3 is greater than 1, I'm going to run the statement. Okay, so is 3 greater than 1? Well, yes it is. Okay, so let's actually give the computer something to do here. Okay, so let's echo out something on the screen, and we can just echo, you have more than one apple. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that now, and we can go back to Firefox and click refresh, and as you can see, it says you have more than one apple. Okay, so this code ran because 3 was greater than 1. But what happens if apples isn't greater than 1? Okay, so let's say we set apples to 0. Well, then the computer is going to read this and go, if apples, which is 0, is greater than 1, do this code. But 0 isn't greater than 1. So we're not going to do this code at all. We're just going to skip this, okay? So now that I've saved that, if I go back to Firefox and click refresh, you can see we've got nothing, okay? And that's because 0 is obviously not greater than 1. So the computer decided, well, then we'll just skip this code, okay? And that's how you use an if statement to make a decision in your code. So basically to decide whether you're going to run a line of code or not. And we can actually have more than one line of code here, so we can have 2 as well. And we can echo out, you have, let's just say the variable here, we'll append on the variable. So you have apples, and we'll append on this again. So you have apples, and basically that's going to tell us how many apples we do in fact have. So let's make this 5 so that the statement is true. And when we come back to Firefox and click refresh, it says you have more than 1 apple, you have 5 apples, okay? So if we wanted to make it a little bit more tidy, we could probably just put a line break in there, and it should print on 2 lines. So that's cool. And that is actually what an if statement does. So thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Please feel free to leave a comment, like or share the video. It's really going to help my channel grow, and I'll see you guys next time.